Welcome to the Origin Canine podcast, where we speak to authentic and inspiring voices from the working canine world. Listen to this episode, subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media, and go to origincanine.com. Enjoy the show.
Sweet. Alrighty, g'day guys. Welcome to another episode of the Origin Canine podcast. Today is take two with an awesome guest. We've got Dave Neilson, former unit member from the Army Special Missions Unit and canine handler. So yeah, bro, welcome to the show. Thanks, man, for coming back.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, good to be back. Good to be with you.
Yeah, good, man. Mate, last time we were chatting, obviously technical difficulties was fucking pain in the ass. But we started talking about your childhood, growing up in Chicago. Yep.
Detroit.
Sorry, Detroit. I got confused last time, Chicago, Detroit. I know that they're probably similar demographics and similar sort of problem areas. And
yeah.
So, yeah, Detroit. Mate, hit us with growing up in Detroit, dude.
It was something, man. So, I grew up in the suburbs to start out. And with my dad and stepmom, and then my mom was married to a black man living in the city. So it was like, it was as normal as it could be for me and my brother, but we also knew it wasn't very normal in the 70s because, we'd be in the car and we'd get looks and stuff. And, but, we learned a lot. Biggest thing was cultures. Like there are different cultures, very different cultures, 45 minutes away from one another. So at the time it was, I didn't like it so much, but it prepared me for my job ahead. So, yeah, that, and then there was just super, super rough. I like that you bring it up, the question about childhood, because I really think it plays into who we become and then who we become afterwards when we see how it all melds. So I was abused. I was not protected. To the point where a psychopath stepbrother did horrible things. And like I've said this before, so why not say it now? Like he used to take me and my little brother when I was 5 and he was 2, and he would make us get on our knees and he would piss in our face, like down in the basement. And I say it to say it just because it's like, what, why? And, that really took something out of me, especially seeing it happen to my little brother. So it also gave me the fight that I had to make it through, getting into the Rangers, unit selection, anything. Like I realized in time that nothing could phase me, having been through that early on. So not, glad that it happened, but God uses all things for the good.
Yeah, and mate, that's pretty intense, bro. Like, I'm sure there was plenty of other sort of stuff, right? I mean, like my daughter's almost 2, right? I couldn't imagine someone pissing in her face. Like, I'd fucking kill that motherfucker. They'd be dead.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I told, my parents, and there was, some talk, but it happened again. And so, and then, we just got beat and beat and beat by this guy. And I just recently was talking to a shrink last year. I'm in my 50s. And I was like, what kind of person would do that? And she said, a psychopath. And I'm like, yes, that's it. Like, I just had never thought of that. And she told me that, and I'm like, yep, that's it. So I was able to at least, come to terms with that. But growing up in a very rough Detroit, and then that abuse happening in the suburbs, and then going to the city, and this is like downtown Detroit, dogfighting, drugs, scary. And I just remember going everywhere, just holding my brother, like real close to me. So that uh, I was afraid, God, there would be fights at school. And I was so afraid of everything until I started drinking. And then I learned, to summon some bravery. But I guess to say that all that prepared me for, for my military service.
Yeah. And you sort of briefly cut out there, but I got the gist of what you were saying, right? Obviously, very scary upbringing, and then you've managed to sort of build this protector instinct, particularly for your little brother. And without getting too Freudian, when you've got things like that happening in your childhood, that's your earliest impression, right? What you can only build on that. You can only make concentric circles around this
Yeah.
person, but at the core, that's who you really are. So it sounds like you've really lacked that. You've had no protection. No one has had your back, but you've had to then turn around and be the protector. I find that really profound.
Yeah. And it's so cool that you bring this up again. Like I can't get my head around, but I can. I'm so proud of you, and to be here with you. The fact that you bring this up right away is so important. I mean, this would be the last thing we talk about on a podcast here in America,
Yeah.
right? But it should be the first thing, and it is. And I commend you for that. Like, really, I'm not just saying that. This is so important. I mean, it really is. So my brother ended up, I'll just get it out now. He ended up taking his own life in 2012. So 11, almost 12 years ago,
Yep.
at 38 years old. And I don't want to jump ahead, but that, you know, was when I was retired, starting to get out of the army, and I felt nothing, not a thing. So that's how much damage happened to me through those years.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, how long were you in the unit for?
9 years. Before that, I was in the Rangers for 6 years. I had a 10-year break in service, but 16 years total, medically retired, 2014. And yeah, so all Rangers in unit time.
Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously we're gonna get to it, but 9 years in a unit like that at that time period operationally, I mean, as traumatic as your brother's suicide is, it's just a drop in the bucket, right? It's like I've
Yeah,
seen this
right,
100 times plus many more things. So
right.
it's testament to how desensitized you would have been.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just want to hit you on one more sort of question that we'll definitely touch back on later. But if when you were a kid and you lacked that protector, but then you had to become the protector, is that something that eventually, because obviously you run the Crossology podcast, Big Cross in the background there, you're quite a religious guy. Is that what turned you to religion? You were maybe looking for a higher power, a higher protector for yourself.
Probably. We would go to church sporadically on Christmas and Easter, and it made me more pissed off than anything, because I'm like, what is this? What's this book they have? First of all, I want to know what's in that book, the Bible. So I got one of my own, and I found some Psalms, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. I mean, the Psalms are where like you relate emotionally, and you could say anything. I mean, there's some like bash the infant's head upon the rock stuff in the Psalms. Like that's where you can really get it out in war and after. And so, but it was just meaningless and fake. So, um, somebody came into my life, my daughter's grandmother, who's passed away just at the right time. And I always knew that I was so interested in that. And now I'm free enough, like in here, I know who I am and I know who I'm not. I'm free enough to proclaim and engage in this. Like, this is what I love. Theology is thinking about creation and everything to do with that. It's what I love. So it's what I get to do now. And I'm happier than I've ever been by far.
That's good. That's good. And that's the end of this story, technically, right? Not the end, but it's your current position. Um, Mate, let's rip back. I want to go into um, not post childhood, but going into the Rangers. Can you talk to me about the process of getting in?
Yeah. So I drank my way into the army. I was homeless, living in my 1976 Ford Granada in Detroit in February. And a couple of friends of mine were joining the army. one of them to be a ranger, the others, oh, that's crazy, I'm not doing that. And it never crossed my mind. Like, I certainly didn't think about it growing up. I liked guns. I liked to play that kind of stuff, but I just didn't know. I didn't think I could do it. It never crossed my mind. So I end up homeless in my car, graduated high school with okay grades, B plus student. Um, it's just like, what do you like to do? Drink beer and look for girls. That literally was what I wanted to do. So I did that until I was cold and hungry. Cold and hungry enough to find change. And then this is the tipping point. My wife loves this story. Like, I was okay with that because I could still get my old Milwaukee Light and had my buddies. We could, you know, go chase women. It was when, and this is in uh 88, 89, somebody busted into my home, my Ford Granada. They smashed a little back window and stole my crappy little speakers. That's when I was like, okay, this is enough. This has to stop. I'm going to do something crazy. And I went and talked to the army and, Navy, everybody, and tested high. And they're like, oh, so they like my test scores. And I just wanted to, I didn't know you got paid extra. I wanted dinner and a bed. Um, I honestly didn't know you got paid. So that was awesome to get $680 a month drinking money. And
Yeah.
that's all I did. I mean, in the Rangers, that's just, yeah. Um, so that's how I got in and didn't even, I got it. I was arrested going to join the army the day I went in to join at the MEP station. My buddies were driving me in and I was drinking a beer in the back seat and we got pulled over. I got a ticket for minor in possession of alcohol, $25, but they're like, oh, you screwed the recruiters. You're going to have to wait. This sounds made up, but I'm leaving the recruiters and they said, hey, you can go today if you want to be a Ranger. And now it's like you got to fight to get a Ranger contract. But I said, all right, sure, I'll try. So I did, and I went in and I found it super easy right from the get-go. I mean, the Army basic training is easy and airborne, but what I saw was tough guys, not so tough. That's when it clicked. Like, and pretty much like mama's boys, guys who were tough in school on a 12 miler were like, I'm not doing this. They're sitting down. They're like, my feet hurt. I'm like, bitch, my feet hurt too, but we're walking, man. We don't stop.
Yeah.
And I felt so good, man. I was like, and then another one, and I'm just like, oh man, come on. Like, I'm gonna walk till I'm down to bone. If this keeps going on, I'm gonna be the last one. And that's what we need. So
Yeah. And that was just a basic. Are you talking about I'm not sure if it would have been called the same thing back then, but the Ranger indoctrination program?
yeah, so like basic up into RIP. That it happened at RIP too. We went from like 76 kids trying out to 12 who made it. And just, you know, there were some hard parts, but definitely doable, you know. So yeah, it was just not, I don't mean easy, but I got real satisfaction from the accomplishments, the milestones, well, you can't do this. Uh, you're, you're 5'7", you're not big, or like, you can't fight this guy. Can I try? Yeah. Like, whatever the case, please tell me I can't do something because I'm going to do it. So,
Yeah, I like that doggedness, man, and I'm sure that was like massive going into Rangers. They're like, oh, you can't do Rangers. Rangers are, 6'2", and I'm trying to think of the amount of pounds, like 200 pounds.
oh, yeah. And yeah. And then the same thing from the Rangers to the unit. They're like, Sergeant Neilson, why are you going to unit selection? You're old. I think I was 39 or 40. I'm like, oh man, thank you for saying that. Cause yeah, cause I'm going to go do it. And I did it. And I started out slow. But I came in first, or, up ahead.
You got
So
there, yeah. Yeah. So what year did you go into the Rangers?
April of '89. And then I got to Ranger Battalion in September of that year. And then by December, we were going to combat the first time in Panama, 89. We jumped in 500 feet, static line drop, taking fire 34 years ago. That 30, yeah. So that was with 2.5 months in battalion. And I wanted to go to war. I don't know where I got this from. Like, I have no family members that served in the military. I went and saw the movie Platoon in the 80s. And I said at dinner once, I was like, I'm going to go in the army. And everybody's like, why? And I'm going to be me. And so ever since then, I've been not even a black sheep, just like my family doesn't like me. We good.
Yeah, good. I think very occasionally it'll cut out and then your voice speeds up and it catches up to where you are. So it should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the last thing I heard was you said that over dinner you're like, I'm going to the army, and your whole family's like, why? What's the point of that?
Yeah. Yeah. And so when Panama came, there was a whole new batch of privates. I was one of them. And, we were supposed to be going home on leave for Christmas and December 20th of 89. And a couple guys quit. I mean, like dudes that I had just, that walked the 12 miles and that had tough feet. They're like, I didn't sign up for this. I'm like, what? We've been talking about wanting to go to war for 10 months now. So they weren't going to take, I talked my way on. Basically, I was on a machine gun team. I was an ammo bearer, carrying a tripod for M60 and 700 rounds of 7.62 and a bunch of other crap. But I was like, Sergeant Ramos, please take me. Like, I needed to go to war. And then hooked up at 1:50 in the morning on, when I see the tracers and I'm just like blank, I'm like, why did I do this? But, I was glad I did.
Yeah. Can you just explain the Panama situation for me? In Australia, we're not like, we know what it is. There was Panama and Grenada uh, around about the same time, but I'm not overly familiar with what the situation was.
Yeah, it's kind of like on the out kind of the fringe end of the Cold War, where there's all these tensions and nuclear war tensions, and Russia's the big enemy, and past Vietnam, but no idea what's coming. And so we had these little flare-ups, just kind of like not nowhere near as big, but the Brits had the Falkland Island War in the 80s in Argentina. That's the only thing I can think to compare it to, but these were, the fights took one night, but we took casualties. So anytime, it's back when the first Bush was president, and it just came out of nowhere. President Noriega in Panama, supposedly one of his officers shot, or one of his army people shot one of our officers and his wife, who were, there living there. So, certainly stuff like that happens nowadays all the time. Not that it should, and not that it's okay, but they called it Operation Just Cause, CAUSE, and we're like, hey, just cause. Why are we going? Just cause.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a really low threshold to launch an airborne assault on a sovereign nation.
It really does. Man, I have told my kids that. My daughter, she goes, I started right in the middle of a Panama story, and she's like, why did you guys do that? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure, but anyways, we went, so there we were. And yeah,
Yeah.
low threshold for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of stuff that happens around the globe now, like if we reacted to everything like that, we'd be everywhere. You'd be in Australia probably.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right. And we talked about it last time, but I want to talk about the actual experience of jumping in at 500 foot, which is fuck all. 500 foot, that's about 150 meters. That's not high at all. That's like you do your awareness count and you're basically touching the ground.
Yeah, same thing in Grenada. I could see grass. I mean, it was nighttime, but it's an airstrip, so there's lights. But I remember just seeing like reeds. You know, training you go 800. That's pretty low. Like you better pull your reserve quick if you got a problem at 800 feet, 500 feet, forget it. And we're trying to get under the AAA fire, and sure enough, they needed to get that low because we were still taking it. One guy got hit on a different plane. He goes down, and people are kicking him because they're thinking he's saying I quit, I quit. He's saying I'm hit, I'm hit. That guy lived, but we took 5 KIA and lots of wounded. Like we always do. Their casualties, who knows how many hundreds or thousands, but it was a scrap for sure. Set me up in the Rangers because now we're private PFCs with CIBs and mustard stains and unstoppable. But yeah, and then Desert Storm was after that. That's where I ran into some Aussies the first time. They had rum, and we had to march to the chow hall.
Yeah, take us through that story. I like that one. It's a good one. It's very Aussie.
Yeah, we're like we go all the way over to Desert Storm, and they took one Ranger company out of 3 battalions, my company. So yeah, that's because we're the best, and we're all fired up. And I meet General Schwarzkopf comes by, and so we're ready. And we did nothing, man. We were nothing, nothing. As opposed to the Aussies and the Brits who were out doing stuff all night. So, and we're Rangers, so we have to march to chow like one guy marching 2 guys. It just because it's in the creed, right? So we got to do it. And it's in Saudi Arabia, our airfield. So yeah, and then these Brits come in, and they're just like in these freaking just vehicles with netting, and envious is nowhere near strong enough a word. We're just like, oh man, look at this. And they're like, they get unloaded, and we're marching to China. They're like, good day, China. How you doing, mate? And we're just like, I never forgot that, how funny that was. And trying to figure it out for 30 some years now. They're like, how's your war going, mate? And we're like, oh, not too good, man. We're not getting to do nothing. Because we had been to Panama and been shot at. So, and we're like, how's your war going? He goes, oh, not bad. 6 weeks of killing all Iraqis. We're like, man,
That could have
you
been
sons
Andy
of bitches.
McNutt, bro.
Yeah. I didn't find out about that till later, but
Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's
awesome.
classic Aussie slash Brit humor. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming back from that, what were your thoughts? You're like, well, I've been in a handful of contacts in Panama. Went to Desert Storm. Wasn't the desert war we thought it was going to be. And because you got out for a while, didn't you?
Yeah. So it was back from that. I did Ranger school in there, which sucked. And, I got married, and I had never planned on staying in the Army. Uh, I was glad I did it. Like, so glad I did it. Got out once again, had no idea what I wanted to do. Um, so I drank beer and chased girls, um, and screwed my life up again. And um, ended up going to school and working at a place, and doing what most people do. I had a job at a networking place that it was called Newbridge Networks. They competed with Cisco Systems for a while. They made equipment that did WAN and LAN stuff, and I was just like a nug. I set up buildings and stuff and traveled a lot, so I liked it. But I just did that for 7, 8 years, and then in 2000, the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Shinseki, 4-star, decided to give black berets to the whole Army. So I'm a civilian, longtime civilian, and I'm on this little Ranger chat back then. And I ended up doing this walk with another guy who it was his idea. His name's Dave Scott. He started it. He didn't finish it. I was the only one that finished it, but it was his idea. I walked from Fort Benning, Georgia to DC, 700 miles in a month. So like 25, 30 miles a day, humping. to protest. And I mean, I was on the news like as it got going almost every day on big news channels, and it was getting big. Got to DC, testified in this in Congress because he spent the money on these berets in China. So uh, we caught him on that. That's what they were pissed about, not that it was wrong. You know, looking back, it's silly that, you know, black beret, you know, it's a symbol, but symbols mean things, right? Just like a flag or money. So I did that, and that was right before 9/11. And so after that, it was almost like one day I woke up and I had it. It was like God told me, you're going back in the Army. And this was right before 9/11. So I ended up going back in. It took me a year to get back in because I'd had back surgeries, fusions. So it was really difficult to get back in. But finally, after a year of trying, I just took the newspaper, the Washington Times, and I showed this woman. I didn't know how I was going to go, but I said, do you see this? Because they're like, you can be a cook or a mechanic. Those are your two choices for jobs. I'm like, no, I'm a ranger. So I showed her that newspaper. I said, this is me. I just did this. I was on MTV, like right there in the MEP station with all these kids there. They showed me walking up to the Lincoln Memorial. Nobody knew it was me. I didn't say anything. It was just, you know, right after 9/11, they're like, what is special ops? And they happened to show me wearing a black Vietnam. So, this is ridiculously funny. He put me right in right there. She wrote orders. I'm gone. Within a week, I'm back, straight orders to 1st Ranger Battalion, right where I'd left. After 10 years, almost to the day, I'm back in. No basic, no nothing. So, and they're on leave when I get there. So, you know, there's a guy there who was an E6, Sergeant Turner. When I got out, I was an E5. He was an E6. He's now or he was an E9 Sergeant Major, but you know, he put me in snipers. He didn't go on leave. Everybody else was gone. He put me in snipers. So I was very happy about that. Got back going to Afghanistan, Iraq. And then the luster wore off as a guy in mid-30s in a Ranger type unit. It was like, oh.
Yeah, do I have to march to get food?
Yeah. Well, that had passed. It was just pretty much dealing with the, you know, not all. I don't know. Just I guess, you know, there's certainly some you know, brothers there that I love to this day, but the naysayers, I guess, is you know, and a lot of the officers like, why do you think that you're qualified to think? Like, you don't get
Yeah,
paid to think. You know, I took it a few times, and then I finally challenged this guy, this just toad of an officer. I'll tell you why. And like, I started telling him like about women in combat, and I told him all this Sun Tzu history that I'd researched and what he found. And, you know, the guy was just like, leave me alone. So that was the enemy for me, man. Looking back, like people that refuse to find their heart and put their heart in anything, like that's, yeah, I think I just realized that.
yeah. It's almost I don't know that particular guy, but it's almost a form of cowardice. You're like, just fucking do it. You know, if there's something you love and you're passionate about, go and do it. Don't be so scared to question it or to do it the right way or a better way. You know what I mean? Maybe cowardice isn't the right
Yeah.
word, but I think you get the gist I'm saying, right?
It's a form of it. Yeah. I mean, that same guy went in Afghanistan. We were in this ambush, November 19th, 2002. I know that because it was 10 years to the day before my twin sons were born, November 19th, 2012. But we're just, and these privates are like jumping up in their guns and doing what they should be doing while there's, you know, guys are getting their camelback shot and weapons shut out of their hands. And so we put some of these guys in for awards, and this same officer denied him, but of course he's getting put in for a Bronze Star, and this story is so overtrodden, but I confronted him on it, and he said, because I put my sniper, I was a sniper team leader, my shooter, I put him in for something pretty simple. You want an award for getting shot at? And I'm like, sir, you're getting one for not. He never left the base. And it just blew my mind, but it cost me, but
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like it's across the board, that one, man. Like we've had in my old unit, in the guys over in Perth, regular army, it's just it always happens, man. Always happens. Like we got this big thing going on here with these war crime allegations against one of our units here, and then the guys in charge wanted to strip everyone of their medals, but then they're still keeping their distinguished service medals, and it's a shit show, but it's a story that's as old as time, mate. It's fucked up.
and sometimes people say, well, why, just let it go. There's a time to let things go, and there's a time not to. When like no one's half the battle, man. And then, knowing what to do is the other half. But man, I would not only do all that stuff again, like standing up, I would try to embarrass him in front of as many people as I could if I could do it again.
Yeah, yeah, I
It
like
is
that, man.
cowardice, like you said.
Yeah, especially later on to deny guys that are doing the legit work. I think it's more of an insecurity thing too. Like, oh fuck, I didn't get into that ambush and be a hero in a gunfight, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mate, I can you just give us a bit of a rundown about your experience in Afghanistan and Iraq with the Ranger Battalion? Doesn't sound like they were quiet, benign trips, or at least the Afghanistan one.
Yes, that was the first one I did back in when I came back in 02. We were in Asadabad, Afghanistan for 3 months, running patrols. The trip before that was when we took 3 casualties, our A squadron from 1st Ranger Battalion. So I was still trying to get back in the Army at that point, so I wasn't there. But it was, got my feet wet again, and nothing serious. I think early in Afghanistan, it was nowhere near like it was toward the end. Iraq was kind of the opposite. So right after that deployment in 02, we were on we were there right away in 03 into Iraq. And, of course there's weapons of mass destruction. Like it took me years to just say those fuckers, man. Like war should be the last. Cause Tom, I'm talking like we want to be war's the ultimate trade, and we're becoming the ultimate practitioner. I mean, that's why we did it. We were. So don't mess around with it and send us to these nonsensical, stupid wars. What's done is done, but we should never do that again. And when we go, don't answer the phones anymore, man, because we're going to finish it, bro. Right?
Yeah, I like that, man.
Gosh. Like, to the point where you can't even use canines. I'm like, they're non-lethal. Well, they don't like dogs. Well, I don't like getting shot.
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
You can't put a dog on them, but you can shoot them in the fucking throat and the face.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, it's strange like that, man. But you're right, dude. You're sort of like, and I think I don't know. I won't go. I hope we don't go down a rabbit warren with this one. But Marcus Luttrell, lone survivor, I saw he was doing a presentation on stage, and he was talking about the same thing of being held back in the SEALs, and he's like, war should be the last option, but when you do send us, you better fucking turn your back because we're going to wreck shop.
Yep. Yeah. It
Yeah.
would save lives. Yeah. So 2 rotations in Iraq. So I did Afghanistan, then Iraq, and then another one with the Rangers. I was there about 3 years the second time. Then I was in snipers. Then I went back to a fire team in B Company 175, and then selection. Like I got to get out of here. I'm either going to go make it to the unit or get out of the Army because it was just, you don't get paid to think. And hey, Ranger, where'd you get those socks? I'm like, well, these are smart wool socks for Sergeant. They're really good for your feet. They're green. They look identical to Army issue socks, but he made me go change my socks. And it's like, man, I'll show you, I'll show you, like, just things like that. So I went to selection, and, you know, for once people weren't lying. Like, at the unit, you got to invent stuff and be creative. And yeah, you better know your job, and it's on you, PT and shooting. You've got to maintain that. All right. Like, that's what I'd been looking for. And it was all that and more. So I was so happy at the unit. Got there in '04.
Yeah. And I know you can only say so much about the unit selection. I know it's a bit of there's a bit of tight hold on that one. What can you say about the process to get in, including like the operator pipeline?
Okay. Yeah, it's first you have to get um kind of selected to go to selection. So they look in the Rangers and Special Forces, Green Berets, and Air Force. Any branch can go, even Coast Guard, but you got to be a stud. Um, and so, you know, pretty much if you're holding your own in a Ranger SF unit, you'll be able to go. Um, so I went, and I mean, it's modeled after the Brit SAS stuff selection process. So I love it. What I loved was being alone in the mountains, crossing state lines, 12 different map sheets in my ruck, and you're using them all, not in one day, but like, two today, three tomorrow, like, just hundreds of miles, but I'm by myself, man. And it's beautiful mountains. Can't sing for shit, but I was singing just to away, solving problems, land navigation. Um, I loved it. I made it the first time. Um, it took a month, about a month. I made it. It's extremely difficult. Like, my friend Jeff Teagues just wrote a book, Where Have All the Heroes Gone? And yeah, I so highly recommend it.
I'm just going to write that down because you mentioned it last time, but I didn't take note of it properly.
Yeah, and he'd be glad to be on with you if you ever want. But he was a squadron commander. He was a Ranger, enlisted back in the day with me. We, went our separate ways. He went to school. I went to drink, and um, we caught back up at the unit and went through OTC together. So we lived right next to each other. We drove in every day. I got to know him real well. He wrote this book, and it's like, oh man, I gave it to my kids for Christmas, all three of them, because it's what I've been trying to write for so many decades. It's so good. I'll let you find out, but it's so good. And now Jeff chases sex traffickers and turns them into the police. Just, he's my hero. So OTC, then that's another 6 months. And that I was not, well, I had a wife with a very extreme personality disorder. I didn't know it at the time, but she just, um, it's called borderline personality disorder. And so like we were trying to get pregnant for 7 years, and she's blaming it on me. You got dirty sperm. What's wrong with you? And I'm like, man, to find out it was her. She had the issue uh, when I was in OTC. And long story short, I failed OTC because of personal stuff. And I couldn't shoot pistol to save my ass. Like, my pistol shooting was horrendous. So I failed, and that was the worst and best day of my life. I didn't know it, but that's what led to Pepper, but I thought I failed. I mean, I was cut at the very end. I was in the last cut, and a lot of people get cut, but they liked me and I had good peer reports. So they asked me to stay. And I was the first one to ask to be a direct support dog handler. So it was granted. And That's how I got Pepper, and I spent 2 years with her. Went back to OTC after she died and smoked it, and then operator for however many more years until 2013, and then retired.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember on the last time we recorded you mentioned you went straight into canine, but I didn't pick that bit up that you didn't go through OTC. It's like a support position, but essentially on target, there's probably minimal difference, right?
Right. You're just as, in just as much danger, but you're not doing any entry and, this door kicking like you want to do. But as I gained trust, and I'd been through selections, so I had a lot more trust than, uh, somebody who hadn't. So, um, I had some pretty good moments with Pepper. Not right away. It took a while. And I don't know if you want to get into her now, but it was she had been fired from her first handler because, like, in another squadron, he's a friend of mine, Kelly Roby. He's awesome. Uh, he sent her in on a training mission. She ran down a dark hallway, came back and bit him right in the nuts. So they're
Oh,
like, yeah, like, oh, get rid of this dog. So I see, when I asked to be a handler, um, I wanted Pepper and I got her, and she didn't become herself until she got her first bite, but it took like a month and a half, and other dogs are getting bites, the big male dogs. So I started hearing chatter, like, what are we even bringing them for? She's not going to bite. Well, she didn't have any opportunities to. She didn't have, there's no squirters, there was no chance for it. And I'm not just
yeah,
going to
just send
manufacture
the dog.
something like, right. Those days were gone. But it finally happened. This guy just, well, she got her first bite. She liked to bite in the dick, I guess, because she bit another guy right in the junk who was trying to fight me after he's coming after me, and she bit him there, and he screamed, and then the whole troop like accepted Pepper. They're like, oh, that's when I was like, okay, thank goodness. You just got to be accepted. And then after that, we got a bunch of bites, and that's that's like getting a kill to an operator.
Yeah. Can you talk us through that first bite? Maybe not the tactical scenario, but like that actual bite itself. What was sort of going on at the time? Were you like internal to a room? Was it out in the open? Was it like very close quarters?
Well, the first one, it's not that good of a story because it was a detainee who, for some reason, I think he decided to like push back on me. We were off target, and I'm like, what are you doing? So I pushed him in the back, and he must have been steer trained pretty well, and I wasn't. So he's resisting me right then. Like, when's the best time to escape? Right after you're captured. We're getting off birds, and he just starts, I'm in the dark a little bit. I would do the same thing now, knowing what I know, but so he's like trying to test me, and she just came around and bit him right in the junk, and he's screaming, and that was that. Um, there were more bites on target after that where I would, because once she knew after that, it was like, okay, now I know the difference between training, and she was just as freaking locked in as any stud, 75-pound Malinois or Dutchie or whatever. She's a 53-pound female, totally social, sit in your lap dog. But
Gonna do
once she got the
some
first bite,
calculations.
she was all on. And uh, one time I sent her and I just couldn't find her for the longest time. And finally you hear that screaming, you're just waiting for that sound, silence, silence, silence. And then, ah. So I go around and she's dragging this dude by his ass cheek, 53-pound dog. It's a small guy, but she's pulling him on pavement. And he's like, Mister, the dog make pain. I'm like, I bet, man.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
her
fucking
job.
bored. It's about to make some pain too.
Yeah. Bullet make death, dog make pain. You choose.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
So she was
So,
awesome. I mean, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say 53 pounds for the Aussies. That's 24 kilos. That's fuck all.
That's a real small
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah. 24. I mean, any male I've ever owned or handled has probably never been south of 30 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds. Let's just do it on my little calculator.
68, 70.
30
I was so
kilos. Yeah,
happy
66 pounds.
to rope a small dog though. I mean, like, I was so happy to have a small dog, but obviously they're not going to bite as hard, but it's hard enough. They're not going to break
Yeah.
arms like Jura, this big old bastard who just was an arm breaker, but she's going to make pain.
And 100%, man. It's enough for you to come over the top, put one in his fucking grape, or grab the dude, or whatever you need to do. So, because this is all Iraq, right?
Yes. Yep. That's the only places we went.
Correct. Yep. Um, and can you just give us an idea of the tempo at that time and what sort of jobs you were doing?
Oh, it was nuts at that time. So 04, 5, 6. I think we had the first surge in 06. It was every night, 3, 4 times a night, nonstop, you know, out west, wild, wild west, Al Assad, Al Qaim, Baghdad, always Baghdad, Mosul, just wherever you were, the VI troop. Um, it just, I'm not one of those guys who like to go out every night. Like I like my rest and my chill time. So those were hard times, man. And I had a baby daughter, so, but
Oh
you
yeah.
know, we did it. We did it. And Pepper was, in the documentary, you could see some of these pictures I took with her. She was a funny dog. I mean, dead serious on target, but funny and social around the house. I could let her go and she'd go to rooms at the MSS and you'd hear guys, Pepper, what's up? Like we'd lose a guy and it would just be, that feeling. You sleep till 3, 4 the next afternoon. And I'd let Pepper go and, she would like bring people back to reality. No other dog could do that. So she became, like so special to everybody in a pretty quick time, 2 years. So then in February 6th of 2006, we were out in Baghdad. Uh, this was a huge, like, conventional army unit, SF, the unit, we're just doing squirter control for this big old cordon search. At that time, AMZ Zarqawi, the guy that was cutting off people's heads and filming it, was still around. So everybody wanted to get him. This big village on the Tigris River. We fly in on little birds. We didn't even land. It's like we're just squirter control, no squirters. We fly back to the MSS. Easy night. I think the Super Bowl it was close to, big football game. So I'm like, cool, we're going to go. And then I didn't even have my helmet off. And they're like, whoa, go back, go back, go back. There's a squirter. So a quick map check, and I'm happy. Like 5-minute flight. It's cold, rainy, nasty, cold, rainy night in February. Fly back on the little bird and land. And we just could not get this guy. I've never seen terrain like this anywhere ever. It's on the bank of the Tigris River, so it's the thickest jungle I've ever seen, or thickets, for about 30 meters. It's just sloped down, and this guy's created some sort of spider hole. But ISR's telling, hey, he's right there, he's right there, he's right there. I sent Pepper once. And so the whole mission's done. Like everybody else is done. They're just sitting there waiting to get the squirter so everybody can exfil. So it's so quiet. And I'm like, okay, they're just waiting on us. Pepper, let's do this. I hear a muffled pop. And then a few minutes later, she comes wobbling back. And I'm like, okay, she's been shot. I'm trained for this. Good girl. Because I had tried to get down to her and I slid down this mud slope and it was not good. So I scrambled back up there, but she comes up to me. I'm checking her out. There's no wounds. She's soaking wet. Every part of her is soaking wet. So her head. So, and then she starts reviving. So I'm like, she must have got taken underwater. She didn't like water. And so I'm like, okay, she got like semi drowned. So she comes back too. And, so, in the meantime, we're shooting rockets and grenades and machine gun and everything we've got, which is a lot, at this spider hole 10, 15 meters down the slope in front of us. We're not
Really?
phasing this guy because he's still got this heat signature. So he's got some sort of, spider hole, built pretty well. We can't drop a bomb because there's houses right there. It's right in South Baghdad. On and on and on through the night. And so I had to decide. I knew the decision was coming. Am I going to send Pepper against? We're the only dog on target. And I knew at the time that this was going to go well or not well, and that it would not haunt me, but be something I would be thinking about the rest of my life. I knew right then and our commander called me to his credit, on the radio, to his credit. Do you think you could send the dog again? It's on you. Only if you think it will work. And, I'm like, well, yeah, this is what it's for. And I love Pepper, but this is what it's for. And she's back and ready and tugging and like, she's like, I see him. I know what to do this time. He's not going to, so I'm like, Pep, all right, girl, come here, and I release her. And I talk about this in the documentary because it's fascinates me to this day. She goes up to the point where it sloped down and she turned and looked back and it's dark, dark, dark. So, night vision, but she turned and looked at me for, man, Tom, it was like a second and a half or 2 seconds. It was longer than just a glance, but not long. Like, I'm not going, call me, it was like this purposeful look to me, to the point where I was like, I looked at my buddy and when I turned back, she was gone. So she went, nothing, nothing. Well, actually pretty quick. Within a minute, one of my buddies, pop, 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 I see him, I got him, I shot him. There's a dead guy floating down the river. So he's out. He's out of his hole. He's dead. Pepper, Pepper, So she wasn't coming back. And we went to look for her. Somebody's like, hey, I see your strobe light. I'm like, oh, thank God. Excuse me. We get there and it was just her strobe light that had come off of her vest.
Yeah.
So I get on a little bird because the pilots, they knew her. Everybody knew Pepper. They're like, we got to find Pepper. They're crabbing up and down the banks of the Tigris and we're on the skids just, and then just like sending her, I knew there'd be another call that, daylight's coming. I was pretty sure she wasn't alive because she would always come back. But the call came and, ooh, man, like, he's like, we got to go. And because there were parts of Humvees that had just been blown up in this area, it was the worst area in South Baghdad. Can't be there in daytime or, you're going to take hits. So, he's like, we got to go. And I fucking screamed and hit my knees and punched the ground several times. I didn't know. That was the last emotion I felt for many years. It was like it came out, but it stayed out. And we left 5-minute little bird flight home. And I'm looking and this kennel's empty. And I'm just like, we wouldn't leave a man there, but she's not a man. She's a dog. So I get out and I just launch this kennel as far as I can. And uh, I think I slept for like I don't remember 3 days after that. I just, sort of burrowed in, and because Lance Cornett, my buddy, had been killed the night before. So, um, yep. So after that, I went back, not to just transition lightly. This was Pepper had become just, I should have said this at the beginning, but this experience was powerful for what it was, but it's become into me uh, letting stuff out and getting in and getting my life back, because this was the opening. It ended up being, in 2014, when I was ready to die, like a lot of vets get to that point. I went into a VA, and we ended up talking about this Pepper story. And this was a way to talk about everything else, about getting pissed on when I was a kid. I would never have talked about that. So really all this, from a bigger picture, is like, this is how I knew I needed to do it and be where I was and do what I did. I just didn't know why. And now I know why. It's um, to be able to reclaim my life, and it sounds cliche, but help others. But it's real living.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an intense story, man. There's a lot to unpack from that too. Um, I mean, tactically, there's a lot going on, a lot of questions I want to ask you. Like, did you guys ever end up going back, or was that night they were just like, sorry, man, we can't launch like a SAR mission, SAR mission, or SR?
We that evening, a pilot came down. He woke me up. He's like, "Hey, come up. We think we see you're on ISR." So I came up, and we would have went. Um, but I was like, "No, that's not." I could tell by the way she was running. I'm like, "That's not Pepper." Um, but thanks. Um, but yeah, I'm sure I thought that too, like, or asked, "Can we go back?" But it obviously must have been no. I just shut down. I seriously don't remember 3 days. My wife, Laura, was the vet tech at the unit. She was there. She remembers seeing me and saying hello to me and, "Hey, I'm sorry about your dog," or whatever you say to somebody. I don't even remember it. So I just shut down. But yeah, so after that, I went back through OTC, and then I just went over and made a decision to kill everybody that I could, and I did.
Good decision, bro.
I did it.
Yeah.
It's a decision. It really is, man. Like, for me, I mean, I needed to decide. Um, and then it's easy after that.
Yeah, yeah, and mate, I've somebody said to me once that the word decide comes from the Latin meaning of to cut off from.
Mm.
So to decide, so you've cut off from something else. You've I don't know if I want to put this philosophically or whatever, but you've cut away a part of yourself or a part of your psychology or whatever it is to then go and pursue this next part. You're just like, I'm gonna fucking kill all you cunts, like as many of you as I can kill.
I love that. And I never thought of that. It's right there. Decide.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh no, the cutout. It's just fucking
Anxiety is Greek for being split. Decide. Yeah. But
yeah.
that takes a toll, all this, there's consequences. So and that's why I didn't feel a thing when my brother hung himself and I flew out to Seattle, and I said, "Oh, it's not that bad." I thought it was going to look worse. Yeah, right. My dad's there crying like he should be, and I said, "It's not that bad." And then, like, the next day or two later, I heard those words in my head, and I was like, "Holy shit! Did I say that?" That's when I knew something was really wrong. So I love my little brother.
Yeah, especially you'd been his protector so long, and I would say you probably did a pretty good job, as good a job as you could do, right? But at the end, mate, like people make their choices, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I just want to backtrack a little bit. Um, I just want to hear a bit more about Pepper, if you're cool to share some more, um, like after her initial bite. Can you give us an idea about what was she like on target? Um, what sort of stuff were you guys doing together? Were you in the main assault? You just hitting squirters? Um,
So they tried to make her a dual purpose dog. And I mean, she wanted nothing to do with that when she got her first bite. So like, it was cool because I didn't want to do detection. I want to be in the stack and get bites. So, she was a biter and she hung on like Velcro. I remember she bit this dude once. Um, and I'm pulling her off because he was with Zarqawi on the beheading of Nick Berg. We got him, and he was
shit, one of
laughing
those
at,
guys.
yeah, one of them. And
Brutal.
I just saw skin stretch like I didn't know it could. So it was really hard to get her off bites. And on target, she was just a complete bastard. Like, you know, because she'd never bought a bit of friendly one of us, but or a woman or a kid, but um, she was going to bite anything she could on target. So it was, I mean, we had some fights, really like, I'm in charge here. And she, okay, really? And I remember once I sort of cuffed her and we got into it. Like, I'm fighting my dog, just like you fight a brother. She hit me in the eye with her head. I had the biggest black eye, man.
Ooh.
Like she won that fight. Yeah, she was a pain, but we'd get back. Mostly when she was like that, it was because there were no bites. Like they get so overtrained like us. Like we want to go do it. So
Yeah, yeah. And how often are you hitting a dry hole in a unit like that?
actually, at that point, oh 04 to oh 06, probably close to half. So, and even on jackpot targets where we get the guy, the bites were just rare. I mean, we probably had 9 or 10 total. I kept journals. So in that 2 years of 3 deployments, 9 or 10 bites, it's not that many. There were a lot more for some guys, but it was kind of depending on the where you were and how the mission set was going.
Yeah,
But it was respectable, and she was well loved, and still to this day, I'll uh this tattoo will be like, "Are you Pepper's handler?" I'm like, "Yeah." They know Pepper, but not me. But
yeah, yeah. No, I get it, mate. I guess it's quite a distinctive tattoo, and the story. I've spoken to a couple of people on Instagram actually about when I put your post up. And then, mate, there's one guy in particular that was just telling me how impactful that story was because I think he was in Iraq around about that time, and I think that story had done the rounds. Um,
Mm.
and I think he was a handler, and he said it was very, very impactful for a lot of people. I don't know if you knew that, but that's what he was saying. He was a U.S. Marine, this particular guy.
I don't, but yeah, I think we talked last time, but this is worth mentioning. I had dreams of me being on a little bird, and I've got the bird's eye view of her, and she's running back and forth, waiting for me to come land. That dream tormented me for years.
Oof.
Yeah. Like, come on, I'm here. We gotta go. We gotta go. She's being shot at and chased, and like the bird won't land. That was unbearable.
Yeah, just give me chills when you said that too. Like, couldn't even imagine. like, fuck, mate, you probably had enough going on in your head without that as well. You know, you're like,
Right.
come on, brain, scumbag brain.
Lost a couple of dogs after that. And our troop handler, um, after that, when I became an operator, assaulter, like 2 dogs on the next rotation in '07. Um, and you're just getting to know these dogs. Bonky was one, Falco was another one. And oh man, it just does something to you when they take your dog down.
Yeah, and that's fucking primal, probably. You know, like it's why my logo is the hand and the paw because we've just co-evolved and co-domesticated. Like it's just such a primal thing, a man and his animal, and then to just take that away, to lose it in combat, which is what a man does. Um, Man, I imagine there's probably no more primal emotion than something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
oh, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what's interesting now is that 10 years removed from retirement, and I took a hard break from everything. I don't go to functions or chats, but I just started re-engaging. And so everybody knows the Pepper story, um, but they don't like that same me that called out that officer. I'll call out guys for just bullshit, like I don't know, trying to bully people and you know, well, you didn't do this and this and this. Like that's why I went into the unit, man, is so that no man could ever tell me I didn't understand something. Because that's what my dad did. And oh, wait till you have kids. Wait till you have two. Wait till you have three, man. That's when it gets crazy. I'm like, this guy's full of shit. I mean, I hate to I'm not trying to dishonor him, but I need to tell this to get it out. And, so nowadays I'll just, I'll confront somebody. I'm not trying to be a jerk or confrontational, but people still want everyone to fit into a mold and to be what they want. And like, that's not who we are, man. We're supposed to create and come up with logos like that. Did I tell you I just noticed that?
This one.
Yeah, it's so cool. I didn't see it until last week. I think I emailed you or something, but I'm like, that is so cool. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is keep going forward and in the process, not making it harder on each other.
Man, I'm with you on that, dude. I'm just, I'm in this state at the moment where I'm trying to keep moving forward, but I've been stuck on a few things, and that's why I started the business for the exact same reason. Keep things moving forward. I learned a lot of things by fucking it up. So business for me is a way to fix mistakes and keep momentum. But like what you were saying about, there's a lot of bullshit in these kind of communities, these sort of tribes. Um, yeah, the word you used last time was candor.
Hmm.
I think it was candor.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yep, it's a big one. And our unit commander said to our group of OTC students, who knows what candor means? And I didn't know at the time, but he didn't call on me. Thank goodness. He called on my buddy, Brian Gilligan. And he said, well, it's when you're, tough and blah. He's like, shut up. You don't know what it means. Like, that's what it means right there, is shut up. You don't know what it means. It means telling the truth. So my quote on that is, there's a fine line between candor and Tourette's. Like,
Yeah.
tell the truth, let people know, but it's okay to finesse it and stuff. Like, there's no reason to just make people feel like crap.
Yeah.
Um, but candor is important, and I really needed to learn that. I was horrible with it because I grew up in this passive aggressive bullshit environment, and then I learned that I can do whatever I put my mind to. And I got my HK 416, and my dog's gone, but I learned some stuff. Yeah, watch me go. But some of the, developing thick skin, or, being okay with not everybody liking me. That's not easy for me. Even saying that, opening up. I call it the V word, man. It's hard for me to say. Vulnerability.
It's true. It's so true, though. It's so true, bro.
But if I don't do that, my relationships are going to be crap and my life's going to be crap and I'll be dead. So I'm a believer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, man. Yeah. And dude, at the risk of being very clunky in asking this question, I
Sorry.
want to. No, that's all right. Because we've got a bit ethereal there for a minute. I want to get back to a little bit tactical. Um, I want to round out the conversation with Pepper, because then I want to start talking about your career as an operator. Um, did you have a particular time with Pepper, or a particular bite apart from that first one, that was like your favorite one? Maybe you're like coming over the top and whack the dude, or she, he had the gun going up, whatever the case was. Is there a particular story that's your favorite?
Yeah, I didn't have a super sexy one where she ran 35 miles an hour and hit a squirter and then, or where I shot anybody. I just didn't. I wish I had, but I didn't. But, my favorite bite was, I started to talk about it. The guy who had been with Zarqawi.
Ah, correct. Yep.
Yeah. So we're going after him in 05 or 06, and we got him. And uh, I gotta think about this. Um, let's just, so we go in and the guy has got his family in there and he's holding a little girl in front of him. I'm way back in the stack. So I hear he's got a kid. I already threw my concussion, somebody says concussion grenade out. These old Namos, like Vietnam era concussion grenades. It's just explosive, no frag, but like, so the guy comes running out with his hair on fire, literally, like he's on fire. The kids are fine. I love it
Good.
when like divine justice takes over. The kids are like, holding their ears, but, and my buddy, the guy who killed the guy in the Tigris River that Pepper was going after, Dean, he took some rounds to the plate. Didn't even feel it till we got back and he saw it, but the guy's pistol stovepiped. Um, he's on fire. Pepper he's biting him. So that's when the skin pulled back so far, that I didn't know skin could stretch like that. Um, I got investigated for that. I made it through it fine without a glitch because the story sounded so ridiculous when 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 he gave it. And then they asked me before I heard it, and I told the story just like he did. So like, they're like, dude, that's there's nothing wrong here. But that was my favorite one because of who the guy was and because of the look he gave at some point, like he was gonna just go to jail and get out. And maybe he did, but he got a nice bite from Pepper the Mal on the way.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Yeah, yeah. I like that there was a sense of justice in that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you about that particular one. It must feel good watching this piece of shit, just his hair on fire, fucking half his face starting to melt, and this dog just
Yeah.
ripping the shit out of his arm. You're like, eat that, you fucking dog.
Yeah. Because he's thinking this ain't my day, and I'm just like, oh, it's about to get so much worse. And slow motion, you get a little time lapse, slow motion, and release that. I forget what it's called. The pull tab to release the. I see him on your
Oh,
site.
strop, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And she's on. At that time, I had like a 2 foot long bungee, and um, she just goes and gets right on, and I'm like, oh, Pepper, Los, what are you? Because it was kind of iffy, but like I said, I got investigated and cleared. But I'm like, hey, oh, Pepper, oh my gosh, Los.
You're like,
Yeah.
nice. That's gold. But like, who investigates the unit? Like some
Our
fucking
own
pencil neck dude,
CI,
or is it like?
well, they're CID, they're people in the military who are, yeah, I mean, it's real.
Oh, I think he's gone.
Investigated me when my ex-wife, as I was going to my retirement ceremony, um, and which got canceled because of that. So the same people, CID, criminal investigation, um, and they look into it, and you know, they saved my life because I told them the truth, and they researched it, and I was cleared.
Yeah, sorry, man. The beginning of that just cut out, went a little bit glitchy. I heard the part about your ex-wife retirement ceremony was cancelled, but I think I missed just before that.
So uh, I had it's CID who investigates, and she made allegations of war crimes. You know,
Gotcha.
my ex-wife, she had stole a thumb drive that I shouldn't have had with some pictures, and then she took pieces of conversation, pieced it together, and went to the IG on base and made these allegations. Literally, like as I'm walking down the spine of the unit for my retirement ceremony, and people are going, you know, it's like your last moment, and it got canceled because of that. Uh, so
Oh,
whatever,
couldn't
man.
wait 30 minutes.
No, right.
Yeah, yeah, it's so time sensitive from
Yeah,
2007.
right. Oh my gosh.
The next
We
30
might have
minutes is critical. Yeah.
right.
Oh, fuck, man. I still want to talk about your time as an operator, but fuck, that must have burnt you a piss, man. Like right at the end, crescendo, leaving the unit, onto bigger pastures, greener pastures, and then like, oh, hey, bro, remember fucking 10 years ago? What? Talk about.
Yeah. Well, and I had negotiated in the court documents, you know, I got my butt crushed in court. Now, you know, like 7 or 8, but permit ceremony. So, because I wanted her to see that. And so that's why she did it to me, was so it wouldn't happen. So she didn't see it. But
Didn't
then
see
my
what?
conscience
Sorry,
is,
man. It just cut out a little bit. Just that first bit.
well, so my ex did all that just to keep my daughter from seeing my retirement ceremony and seeing, you know, Delta and all my mates talk about me and hopefully get teared up. And so, yeah, so she didn't get to see that, but you know, I made it. Like, it's all right. All things work for the good.
Yeah. Man, that's nasty, nasty stuff, dude. Nasty stuff. I got a mate, his ex is very similar. And he's around about your age too. Yeah, just real nasty, vindictive stuff from like 10 plus years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's false allegations. Oof, man, that's a real thing to deal with. You hit when you until it happens, you're like, oh yeah, that's horrible. But when it happens, you're just, you know, it's really tough. That's when you find faith.
Yeah, 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 exactly, man. Jesus. Excuse my profanities, mate. It's part of my regular vernacular. Obviously, it's not quite doesn't quite fit in with your religious philosophy there, but I'll try and I'll try and curb my enthusiasm when it comes to profanities.
It's all right. Like I said, you'll get me going, and then they'll be like, hey, aren't you the guy on the Christology podcast dropping
You're like,
F and
no,
C
no, no,
bombs?
that's Dave
It's all
Nelson.
right. Yeah, right. It is
Yeah,
what it is, man. Like I don't need to hide. It's so awesome to just be able to be where I'm at and speak the truth. And if I do, you know, make a mistake, okay. You know, the gospel is good news, not good advice. That's the main thing.
yeah.
It's good news.
And mate, I've actually got plans. I do actually want to read the Bible. ironically, my father-in-law, his name is Dave Neilson.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
really. um, yeah, and my partner's parents are very religious. So, and I've just been planning to read it for a long time, not because I'm religious, not for the dogmatic sort of stuff, just for the ancient wisdom, I guess, and the story archetypes and the characters and um. So yeah, man. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Right on. That's good to hear. That's that's awesome.
Yeah. So mate, let's get back to you passing OTC and sorry, operator training course.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Um, and then getting into the unit, and you've obviously done a bunch of stuff subsequent um, to passing that course. And you alluded to it before as well. You said getting to the unit, it was everything people said it was. There was none of the bullshit. Can you give us a bit of a rundown on the life of an operator in the unit? And I want to get onto the maiming stuff in a minute. But what's it like, man, as an operator in the unit? Do they just cut away all the dog shit, roll your
Nope.
sleeves up, don't shave, or
Okay.
there's a little bit of bullshit?
Uh, what I like about, I mean, the best kind of summation of it is big boy rules. You better be ready to go when it's time to go. Uh, and I'm not the most self-disciplined person, but I'm disciplined enough to have, there were some shocks, uh, PT wise, like I'm not the biggest PT stud, but I can hold my own. So, but you could take an idea. I guess the coolest thing, I like creativity. You could say, like my brother-in-law at the time was a physicist for Boeing. He had this metal called, well, this kind of new metal that Boeing was using that flexed at different temperatures, and it was stronger than steel and half the weight. So I was going to make, I didn't get around to it. Just came to my mind. I was going to try and make a different kind of plate armor. Like, go ahead, do it. You got to fit it around your pre-deployment train up and deployment and everything else, but go ahead and do it. You had the freedom to do that. And I just love that. Why would you not want people to think, um, and create and be better? Um, so it's just, so a typical day, is, you could go in whenever you want, which makes me want to go in at 4 a.m. and go shoot my long guns, or 3 a.m. and go shoot my long guns and just decompress. Like I used to take Pepper out on this green hill out back behind the kennels afterwards, and I would just sit there with her till she fell asleep, like to bond. I knew that was so important, or I thought it was, and it was. Um, so the fact that, nobody's jamming stuff down my throat makes me want to excel. And I think it's like that with everybody else. You just got to be ready to do your job. And I was, and the worst day there was still a pretty damn good day.
Yeah. And but I mean, obviously, it's still the army. Are you just totally just like no grooming standards, just wear whatever you want, but these are probably some times you'd want to have uniform, no shaving, haircuts, or is it like, hey boys, we're going to go to see General fucking Jono, and he's a stickler for haircuts and sleeves rolled down? Is there any of that, or is it just like you don't tell the unit what to do? We'll do what the unit does.
It's it's a little of both, but it's mostly, um, do the right thing. So, you know, like when I was a dog handler, I'm like, okay, I'm in the unit. I'm not an operator, but so I'm going to grow facial hair. And I just suck at that. It's not my skill. So I look like a ball sack on my chin, and nobody said anything, but like looking back at pictures, I'm like, man, that's weak sauce. Live and learn. So I learned from that. Um, the same with hats and stuff. So I guess what ends up happening is the seasoned dudes, and that's what I became, and I'm so glad I did. Like a 3IC during the years, you said it at the beginning, during those years from, '03 to 9, 10, 11, those were the heavy lifting years where we just got it on. And Jeff Teagues talks about it in his book. And I mean, 3IC, 2IC on teams, I'm the first guy in every time. That's my thing. I'm a team preacher. The only time I didn't get in is when I blew myself up and knocked myself out. My buddy Eric's like, "Hey, you going in?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? Get out of my way." That was my thing, partly because I, was okay if my life ended because I was so miserable, but also because I just was small and fast and a pretty good shot. I always say my best sniper shot was about 2 meters because I'm moving and this guy's pulling his wife over him and it just slow motion. And I like the dude's brain came out on his wife's lap. And I remember looking at my buddy Eric going down the other wall and we're just like catching all this real time. And she's just looking at this pink, moist brain and his deflated head, it was like we just got brown tips and I just hit him in the right spot like magic, when
Oh,
you put a
beautiful.
pinhole in an egg and you can blow the yolk out. So, something weird happened, but like his brain came out. It was hilarious for us. Um, I don't even know how I got started on that.
I think we're talking about the right thing to do, seasoned guys. We started talking about
Yeah.
haircuts. I think you were talking about giving dudes 556 haircuts.
So when I decided to do my job to the utmost, and that meant taking some risks, like, hey boss, this your commander's intent here says kill or capture. Is that the order you want it done in? Yep. Okay. He's dead. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But um, so like then you're being creative. You're figuring out how to win the damn war, right? And stop fucking dragging it out forever and releasing people. And we're not going to go out at night. Like I wasn't in those years. I'm so glad. We're not going to go out at night because I can't even believe that. I had friends who took firing pin out of Afghani surrogates' weapons because they heard them talking that they were going to shoot them that night. They they tried. It happened. These guys turned on them. Click. No firing pin. Ha ha. My buddies got fired
Really?
because they didn't trust. They didn't. Yep. And this went higher than the unit. This wasn't unit. It went all the way up. Is that not just insane?
Yeah.
Um, like I hope I never get, or my kids never get okay with shit like that. You know.
Mate, I think the longer that my experience is Afghanistan, I think the longer that Afghanistan campaign, at least for Australia, with the shit that's going on with us, um, the less clear the strategy was. And then it would have trickled down to the tactical level because you're talking about the kill capture stuff. I mean, um, in those days for my old unit, the guys over in Perth SASR, there was a kill capture stuff. And even the term kill capture was always sort of questioned. I was in the regular army at that time, but for me, it's just very typical of having no strategy or a lack of strategy, and then just making some shit up down at the tactical level, like changing words and like only daytime raids now, so it's more dangerous.
Yeah. So, but I guess all that leads to overtime and attrition. But I realized that I was a bona fide no shit operator in the unit. And I really knew it because I had the utmost respect for support people. I didn't need to look down on them and prove myself. And so I didn't need to have a beard or stand out, I guess. I'd wear my shiny Tag Heuer watch, a couple of things here and there, but like, so I guess when maturity comes, when you get to the point where you're the real deal, you could do, not cut your hair. But usually I wouldn't. I would just, I don't know, be normal.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. It's like, yeah, you can wear thongs, shorts, and have a big beard and long hair, but like, what's the point? Like, I'm going to trust you to be able to know that when it's beach time or knock off time, chuck your thongs on. But if we're going up to I don't know, you're doing like a recruiting drive, you know, maybe this is the way you might want to dress. It's still up to you, but this might be the way you want to do it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
those big boy rules are like, hey, if you do something stupid, hey man, we just did a recruiting drive. You had your cock hanging out, or something stupid like that's probably not what we want to be doing.
I was like, well, I was trying to be funny, right? Because that's funny to our guys.
It was
But
ironic.
it's not. Like, remember, we were outside Abu Ghraib once with when I was in the Rangers, Abu Ghraib prison, and there was some CIA case officer or something there with us. So he's just all proper. And my buddy, like, he's like, "Hey, Sergeant Neilson, wouldn't it be funny if I'm like, well, it'd be really funny if you just went over there and took your pants off completely, put your boots back on, your kit back on, no pants, and then, and this is cold in the winter, and then go back and stand next to him, because the guy went to piss, this at night, standing outside Abu Ghraib, trying to get somebody out of Abu Ghraib, and my buddy goes and stands right next to him, just like, because we just love to mess with USG, like government people who aren't us, because they don't like DOD very much. So he does it. He takes his pants off and he comes back and he's just standing right next to the guy. And the dude just acted like he didn't see it, man. And that's so telling to me, like, you're not even going to laugh or something. You're just going to act like it's not happening.
Yeah. Boys will be boys, right? No matter where you could be in Tier 1 Army Special Missions Unit or like Rangers, and you're just like, hey, watch this. I'll put my pants down. um,
Yeah.
so back to when you were an operator in those years, obviously post being a handler, again, massive operational tempo, and you sort of talked about it then, whacking that dude, and brain, just those sort of things. Can you give us an idea about what your role was like as an operator? Because you were a breacher after OTC, right?
A team breacher. So, it's not like a specialized breacher. It's just like, I'm the dude who's going to have the explosives, and there's, it's just, it's been that way for forever. And I loved it. So I'd have to build my charges every night when we're over there, or, every few nights you build a bunch of charges. It takes a long time. All the team breachers meet up and you have a little party building charges. And, so you've got them, your little ones, your big ones for main entry, small doors. But I just love that because I'm right there, and I just always wanted to be in the front. Um, like kind of like Panama, like I needed to know what it is. If I'm up to it, I need to know. Um, and I was, and then it's like, okay, what now? What do I do now, man? Like, I'm a real leader. I know that because I've seen shit I've seen a brain in a woman's lap and she doesn't, it's not making sense to her. And 1,500 other things like that you know about, or, you've experienced. So what now? And it's like, you realize like it is a special thing. Um, and so, over the years now I'm doing what I really want to do. I realize that I have fears, stupid fears like dancing. I'm still petrified of dancing, man. I really am. Like I would love to get out of a video right now and set up a charge and clack it in and get in a gunfight. But man, when I hear about a wedding and there might be dancing, like I gotta go hit my knees and pray.
Yeah.
So like I'm a wuss. I'm still a fearful person. That's what I'm saying. And that's normal. Everybody is, right? Fucking face it and admit it. Step into it. faith must move. That's what I'm teaching my kids. And I'm like I said earlier, I'm alive. I'm honest. I have friends, real friends, a real marriage. Um, I'm not afraid. The biggest thing is right here doing this. I wouldn't have done this before because what are the boys going to think? Well, it's
Yeah, yeah,
okay. It's okay because most of them might be like, oh, not, no big deal. Most of them aren't going to care. And a few of them might say some negative things. And as recently as 3 months ago, that really affected me. It threw me off for a couple of days where I had to talk to everybody I encountered, people that I trust about it. And it's just admitting a fear. Why would we not talk about this stuff and figure lessons learned, you know? And it's just jealousy and envy, usually most of the time anyways. So
yeah. Well, I mean, imagine if dudes from the Second World War or Vietnam or any other war didn't talk on documentaries and, like there's a big lessons learned part. And I think most of that should be internal to different units. I don't think there's enough of that. But I mean, even just for posterity's sake, like, you tell one story from one GA that you did in your whole career, and that would be the center point for somebody's life somewhere. They're like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. So why not pass on some of that? There's a bunch of stuff you won't want to talk about, don't need to talk about. It's no one's business but yours. But um, like we said last time, like, oh, how many people did you kill? Like, who cares? That's
yeah,
that might be a personal thing for you, but not somebody else. So
yeah. But it all starts with the willingness to ask somebody to be on your podcast. Cause I'm having that fear now because I'm just starting it up. Well, what if he says no? Who cares, man? Let alone launch it and, keep it going and ask about somebody's childhood right off the beginning. Tom, man, I love that you did that, do that. Just so cool.
yeah, oh, thank you, bro. Appreciate it, man. Yeah. Well, mate, hit me with some OT. Sorry, I keep saying OTC. Hit me with just a couple more like life between those sort of years. 06 was it to 14 operational tempo, and then um, like what happened at the tail end of your career, starting to slow down on the way out.
Okay. We were on a jump trip, just working Halo, hey ho, out in Nevada in the desert, 25,000 foot. And that was one of the things that came natural to me. I'm a slow learner, but I do learn. But when I first jumped, it was like, oh, this is easy. I could just fly my body. So we were jumping more and more and more, and then adding, long guns, 338, and a ruck, back, front, and I just added too many things, or two things instead of one quickly, and so we're doing a 25,000 K night O2, combat equipment training jump. But I went out and I had a horseshoe malfunction, pulled for a hey ho, go out, count to 5, pull. My pilot chute wrapped around my ankle, and I felt it happening like right, like slowly as it caught wind, and I knew, and like it got wind, and I kicked myself in the back of the head, and I don't bend very well. Oh, so I'm like, oh, I thought my leg was disjointed, like if you a chicken leg, if you just turn it in the knuckle. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like. And so I'm hanging upside down by one leg, falling to my death in freezing cold at night. It was wintertime, of course, so it's 3 degrees for every 1,000 feet. So it's 20 degrees on the ground, -60 up at altitude, whatever. Night vision came off, oxygen came off. Um, this is what led to me to the end of my career, part of it. I said the Peter prayer, God help. Like Peter said on the water when he tried to walk on the water and he sank. He's like, Lord help. When you got that much time, that's what you say. And I said that, and I can still see the dude's face on the ramp of the C-130. The loadmaster was like, as they're flying away, I'm like he saw me have that halo, so I heard it over the radio. So I cut away, and of course everything came out okay. But you know how that can go. Horseshoes are very dangerous. Um, I had a streamer. I'm just falling, so I cut away. I get a good shoot. Came down, but my leg and back were just a mess. So after that, I decided I'd always wanted to do the Arabic course. It's a year-long course. I like language. So I did. And that was, I just love that. Went to Egypt, Israel, all around, a whole bunch of countries. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And um, yeah, that was, and then I worked at the language lab as like the NCOIC until I retired. So I had, all said and done, I had 9 combat rotations, not counting surges or, you know, low vis stuff, just putting it all on and going out. I had 9, including Panama, Desert Storm,
Yeah.
and then Afghanistan, Iraq. So even then I was like, oh, I got to do more. I got to do more. And I saw, I don't know if, well, you probably don't watch American football, but this quarterback, Brett Favre, at the time he was trying to make a comeback with another team, and he's old, and he goes back to pass and he just gets murdered by this guy. And I was like, man, that's going to be me if I keep, like, I knew right there. I'm like, I need to retire. That's ugly. There's bigger, faster, stronger, smarter guys coming in. And so I did. I got out of the way, and I don't regret it.
Yeah. So did they force you to medically retire, or you were like, man,
No,
I'm pretty fucked up?
I nobody ever said a thing about it. I was just like, I'm not going to make it to 20. There's no way. I can't, I can't move. So when I brought it up to the psych and the doctor, who I knew very well, they're like, yeah, we were waiting for you to come. So it, it made me feel a lot better, and still difficult, but I had been out once before, so I knew how hard it would be. But got out in 13, and by 2014, one cold February night, it's like, I'm going to die tonight. Because if we don't find something to replace what is, feeding our soul and keeping us alive, then we're going to wither and die. So went to the VA and checked myself in, and I found an incredible couple doctors and told them about my brother dying and me saying it's not that bad. And then she said, okay, we're going to tell a story over and over and over for a year every week. So pick a good one.
Shit.
So I picked Pepper, and Lance Cornett killed the night before. And we're doing that. It's a thing called prolonged exposure. So we're
Just
doing
gonna
that
look
for,
up Lance Cornell while you're talking. Sorry, man.
okay, yep. We're doing that for 9, 10 months. And right in there was when HBO Channing Tatum got a hold of me to make this documentary, War Dog, a Soldier's Best Friend. So it's like, wow, all things where I keep saying it work together. You know, I had been telling this story about Pepper for months to a professional therapist at the VA. And then now I'm going to talk to HBO, uh, and then going to Hollywood and meeting the guys from the TV show SEAL Team and going out and watching them, and like them caring. Man, when they were like asking my opinion and how can we make this better, I was like, it's cool that you care. And not just that, I mean, they want to know what it was like. And I didn't expect that. So I was really taken aback by that. and it's a small section of Hollywood probably, but God, that meant a lot to me, and I'm still friends with those guys, and I appreciate what they're doing. They're trying to show people what we do. Justin Melnick is the dog handler on the TV show SEAL Team. He's a really good friend of mine.
Yeah, good, man.
Yeah, and he'll take some crap from people like, you don't do it for real, but he's like, I'm not trying to. This is where I am in my life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've met Justin a couple of times. I was at the AT Canine conference. One of your lads, a guy, Jean-Claude LeBlanc, he
Yes. Yep.
he started that. Him and a couple of guys started that one up. It's a great conference. But yeah, Justin was there. Bunch of other guys that you probably know as well. So yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, good on you. And I just can't. I do what I do, and like I'm happy to talk about Pepper, especially only with people that respect it, and you certainly do. Um, and for that one Marine out there, like you told me, I had never heard that it made a difference to him. That's what it's all about, man. Come on, that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly, man. And so leading the unit, and obviously you've got a lot of stories and a lot of experience to pass on to these guys. And we talked about it last time, probably a bit less this time. So things like taking life, the violence, exposure to blasts and all sorts of stuff. Obviously, you've said to yourself, "Man, I'm going to fucking kill as many of these bad dudes as I possibly can because that's what I'm fucking supposed to do." Did you give a shit about any of that stuff later? I mean, obviously, the way you talk about it's I'm going to use that word candor, but it's very candid the way you talk about it. It's just part and
Well,
parcel of who you are and what you've done.
it's a good question and a good point, because I don't want it to seem cold. There were some that bothered me. I guess the ones that I talk about like that, I'm really glad you brought this up, is because that guy was pulling his wife up on top of him, or the other guy had his daughter in front of him. So they need to get their brain put in their wife's lap. You don't do that. That's like anybody out there that thinks that, no, that's not what men do. But there were some that, man, a few rotations, I ended up killing the last guy on these like 3 rotations in a row. What turned out to be a teenage kid. And it was like, I was like, why is this happening every time on the last mission? And, you can't tell at night and what they're doing, and they're doing something worthy of getting smoked. But, I'm like, oh God, this kid looks like he's 15. What a shame. That's war. Those ones aren't fun to talk about. They shouldn't be. But it's no disrespect for my enemy, except the ones that I mentioned.
Yeah.
But I respect war. It's beyond war doesn't care what I think about it, but it's a thing that's been around forever. And like, that's what I'm starting to realize, is what I'm trying to figure out is what endures, what matters. It's not rank or how many kills or Delta Force. It's character. Because that's what I need to show my kids. That's what endures. And war is the vehicle that my sons are 11, man. It's really, they're interested, but I think they don't know how to ask me. And I'm always asking my wife, like, how can I bring this up to, I think they don't know where to kind of enter in. Whereas with my daughter, she eats it all up. Like, she loves the stories and we'll laugh about it. So I don't know. It's not what I expect, but that's good. We shouldn't be comfortable all the time.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I guess for your sons, for you, it's probably a hard way because you're like, do I just do this callously? And you're like, hey, kids, I just want to let you know that I used to kill people. And they're like, oh, fuck. And you're like, oh, shit, too much.
Don't tell
Maybe
your
that
mom I
was the wrong way. Yeah. But then, your daughter obviously it takes it a different way. And then you talk on podcasts like this? Because I've looked at a couple of other podcasts you did, and like I said, you've been very, very candid about the way you talk about some of this stuff that was totally a reality for you. You know, what's chaos for
Yeah.
the fly is normal for the spider, right? Um,
And I made a
have you?
decision to do that, but just
Yeah,
decide, right, to like to be cut off from. I decided when I made an Instagram account and decided to enter back into this world after 10 years of being out of it, I decided to talk about it candidly. I didn't, and it wasn't a light decision. I
yeah,
wrestled
yeah.
with it. I prayed. And so, but I do that so that we can have these discussions. And people can hear, like you said, what if World War II guys didn't tell their stories? They need to be told from everybody.
And I'm sure you're probably the same, and I think my audience is the same. I'm fascinated by the minutia of some of this stuff. You know,
Mm.
like where were you in the room, and then what did he say, and then we can't always talk about things like that. But I mean, do you find you're ever at odds with your audience, whoever they may be, your kids, church, your ex unit mates, with some of this stuff that you talk about or who you are?
Yes. Yeah. And I keep facing it because I want to explain it's impossible, but we got to try what it's like to be out in the cold, damn rain. Just that, laying there under a tree, how miserable that is. Because nobody's going to do that, you know? That in the cold, laying in the rain. Okay, now here's a rifle. Now you're going to pull security on this training mission all night. Then you're going to walk 12 miles in the heat tomorrow with no sleep. Stuff like that is what I want to get through. I'm a writer, you know, I wrote one thing a day in the life and just of being in Iraq, you know, the air conditioners are on, it's cold when we sleep, and then you come out, you open the door in the sun, you know, getting up at 5 o'clock at night, it's 130 degrees still. uh Things like that. uh a walk-in, you know, an offset infill where the helos drop you 5 clicks out from a target, and um you can't cross this canal, things like that, the problem solving, or a tank, man. One time we come out of a clearing and there's a US M1 tank in this field, and we got to get across, and we can't reach him, and he's not supposed to be there, or are we not supposed to be there? And nobody can kill Americans like Americans. So we're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I'll go up and knock. I actually said that, and everybody laughed, and that's what ended up doing because we couldn't do anything else. And we had to get to our target, man. And there was, if we could have went in canals, but if he would have seen us, he would have lit us up. So I go there, it's 4 a.m. You know, we got 2 more hours till sun up. I knock on this M1 and it's like knocking on a tree or on the ground. So then I take, you know, my gun barrel and I somehow get this guy's attention. He's like, what are you doing here? You know, I'm like, hey, Americans, we're just trying to get through. And oh my God, why didn't you call us? Like we tried, they were asleep. They were all asleep. So like, I talked to my buddy about that who played college football. He wasn't in the army, but it's like face your tank. That's the thing we say now, face the tank. He ended up providing overwatch for us now as we go to this target. Now we can move fast, and you know, he's seeing where we're going. If we need help, we got him now instead of him possibly killing us. He's an
Yeah.
asset. So yeah, stories like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure even on that one particular mission, like as obscure as that tank would have been, there'd be plenty of other shit that you could talk about that was just, like I said, would be the centerpiece of somebody else's life. Wow, that was the most intense thing that's ever happened. One round went over my head or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. There's, you're right. I like the minutia too. Uh, it's so hard for me to get it out. Not that I don't want to talk about it. Here I am talking about it. I just don't know how. And that's why I'm so happy about Jeff Teague's book. Cause it's like, oh man, he just said what I've been trying to say. And we had parallel careers. Um, so in a sense, I don't have to write it, but the name of the book is Where Have All the Heroes Gone? I want to answer it. You know, hey, he's a squadron commander. Hey, boss asked the question, where are we at, fellas? We going to sit around and pull each other's dicks and talk about how cool we were? Or are we going to talk about we're 50 now and we're not so cool anymore and let's get real, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, I'm sure you guys in your group chats and your Facebook groups or whatever mechanism you use, I'm sure there's still a little bit like, oh, who's this guy? Who's that guy? And this guy's talking shit, or he said blah.
yeah. But the ones like there's one you asked for a couple stories. Here's the second one. We're going man, we cleared uh a small village, so but it's just a few teams, so it's not many guys. It was hard work, and we had gun runs at the beginning. So there's people laying there with their intestines out, asking for you to staple them up. I mean, it was a pretty freaking apocalypse now looking hit that night. Indian Hills, blah blah blah. Last house corner, three guys in front of me get shot by a woman. We thought, man, isn't the timing just perfect?
I was just about to say, but
Perfect
I was
time.
going to let you
Yeah.
continue with the story. I was like, oh, it's the beginning. I was like, nah, let's just keep going.
So, it's like, ma'am, we got the turret, looks like a woman wearing a dress, acting like a woman. She turns around with an AK and shoots my three buddies right in front of me. We flank around, we kill the guy. They all lived, but man. So we ended up poking a hole in this house with a thermobaric law, I think, to get, somewhere to shoot into. The house caught on fire. There were kids in there. They wouldn't let the kids out. Like this one bothers me more than any.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, we got to go in there and do some hostage rescue. It's like, well, we got three wounded. We're, one of them was shot in the gut. So he's serious. We couldn't, man. And, well, we didn't. We could have. That's the thing. But we didn't. I wasn't in charge. I certainly tried. Um, and I heard these kids scream till they died.
Oof.
And, yeah, we exfilled and we ended up on high ground or on a top of a building. And man, I hate this. I hate this whole story, but one of them came out the back. We didn't even, and I shot him, um, in the gut on purpose. It was 250, 300 meters shot. And I aimed to where I would hit him in the gut a couple times. And, I still remember the time of flight, just 4/10 of a second, maybe. And my buddy's like, why'd you hit him there? I'm like, I hope he dies slowly. Wouldn't let those kids out.
Mm.
Oh, so yeah, like shit like that, I wouldn't normally talk about, but we all need to get out of our comfort zone.
That's intense, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think those are the sort of things that people don't realize. I mean, we all think of that movie scenario, grabbing the hostage or the kid or the wife, but like just letting a bunch of kids just fucking burn in a building, like that's some, man, I don't like to use the word evil often because I've never really thought that there was such a thing as evil, but man, it's evil, bro. It's sadistic. It's fucking, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel a sense of justice smoking that dude and just letting him fucking bleed out from a gut shot?
A little bit. You know, just knowing that he felt pain a little bit, but not enough. Um, I mean, I definitely went into berserker mode after that. Just, I always knew who it was that I was going after. It was never just, it's not that at all. You're not going to get selected if you're like that. So please,
Yeah.
I hope nobody ever thinks I'm talking like that, but
Yeah.
it's a
Just
skill. Yeah. And it's to learn the right, the right target and acquire again, like, why is he getting all the kills? I just had this sense of where to go. Like the guy watching, man, I think we had talked about this one last one.
Mate, trust me, I like the war stories as much as the next man, and the people who listen to this podcast love that stuff. So, mate, it's a great mix of like your experience as a human versus some war
Yeah.
stories. Like, send it, bro. No stress.
This one's my favorite because this guy was the emir of assassinations in some part of Baghdad. And he was this little 5'1" dude. Not that, I'm short too, but this little guy who was just a thug. And so I have his wedding picture now. I have a picture of him and his wife because he's got this snarky look on his face. I got it on Target, and she looks so miserable. We go in. I was just talking about how I always knew where to go. They had this like sort of L-shaped courtyard and all these doors. And I just picked a door and I went in, and there's this guy watching the movie, The Last Samurai. It's a Tom Cruise movie. He's watching that on his computer. And I bust in, surprise, cockfag. And he looks at me. He's just like almost half pissed and half confused that I'm here, which makes me pissed because like I'm here to fucking kill you. And he looks back at his AK, and I sort of lowered my muzzle, which made him reach for it and go like this. And I put a couple, and it went through his wrist so I could see his tendons move. And this might sound so sick to somebody, but
I don't think the
let
people
me,
that think are listening to my podcast, mate. If they are, they're
well,
gone by now.
here's where I'll make it okay,
No,
because it is
give us
okay.
the
No,
demonstrated.
because it is okay. Check it. So after I'll jump ahead, and then I'll come back to the killing. After this guy died, I hear this, this screaming that you hear very often from the wife. The interpreter says, hey, hey, Dave, she wants to talk to you. I'm like, no, I don't want to get yelled at. No, I think it might be different. Okay. So he comes, he's like, she wants to know if she can go back to America with you and marry you. Like, what? And she wants to thank you because this guy was abusing her and wouldn't let her and her three daughters leave the house. And this woman's crying and thanking me. And, ooh, man. Wow. Best ever, man. So rewind back to that. He's looking at me, and I put a couple through his arm to stun him. And then he's just looking at me in rage. And I liked it. I was probably smiling. That's how I felt. My heart was smiling. I put one in, and my buddy Eric comes in. He had a shotgun, and he just like, it's just because this guy's the emir of assassinations. He's running around killing Iraqis because they are a slightly different sect of religion than him. So yeah, but yep, I still got the wedding picture. I'll have to get that. I got a green trunk, man, with like GRGs and notes and that I haven't been into in many years, but it's in there.
Yeah, mate. I'd love to. I wouldn't post it, but I'd love to see that photo. Just the dude just had his fucking body destroyed.
Yeah, and like, no, she wants to. It's different. She's saying thank you. She wants to hug you. Is it okay if she hugs you? I'm like, yeah, sure. And honestly going through my mind. I'm looking at it like, can I bring her home just for the night? Like just, I don't know. I felt so darn good at that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the times they would just be like, ah, or sort of cry for 5 minutes and then they're fine. Then they're like, and they are fine. Not just, oof, man, culture's a weird thing.
I just got the end of that, but I think I understand the sentiment.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um, so surely, like, do you reflect more on the ones on the better ones than the worst ones, or is it not something you try and think about at all unless you're on a podcast like this?
it's, I don't, whatever comes, comes. And I've dealt with
Oh no, still
kids
in
in
the
the
thing.
fire. I've got help a lot every now and then. uh, so just whatever comes to mind, I talk about. I'm okay, I think, with everything. There may be some, but I've gotten a lot of help. So, as recently as last summer, I got out of sorts, and I know immediately I get help right away. I don't let it linger and take me down. Um, and I've got good help, so I get through it. And that's so the bad ones, the hard ones to talk about, I think, are just as important because they're hard to talk about for a reason. For some people, that it's hard for them to talk about because they might not have killed anyone, and that, who cares? Seriously, I didn't get to kill anyone for years. I wanted to, I just never, or I wanted to have that. I wanted to know if I could do it, and it didn't happen till it happened. But once it happened, and it's not. I don't know. It really doesn't matter. Character's what matters, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not the stats, it's the wins.
Yeah, does it and it'll get easier, surely, right?
Yes, it definitely does. But because I've faced it and walked into it. And that's why I'm so big on you when I say, like, man, the way you're a good host, but you're also just a good human because I can tell you're who you are. And that's rare. Like, I coach kids, I'm trying to get them to do that. That's the path to, you know, goodness, whatever's next is to be where you're at. It's not so easy.
Yeah, thanks, man. Worked hard, man, and still working, bro. Especially when it
Yeah.
comes to that mental health stuff you're talking about. Every now and then I have a little crash, and I just sometimes I see it coming, sometimes I don't. So
Yeah. I have my days. It's hard to get motivated recently. Like I've got this equipment. I mean, around this, like I'm all ready to go on this podcast. It's like, I just can't freaking move some days. And it's like, what's wrong with me? But
yeah,
I just, yeah.
and mate, like that's where I was for the longest time, right, with the business and the podcast, whatever. But I mean, now I'm just in my spare room. I just cleared some washing off this table. There's a half a bookshelf here, and the first time we did was down in the office with a cooler background. I've done ones in like different rooms. Like that stuff used to bother me, but
Mm,
now I'm just like 90% of people listen to this in their car. No one's really sitting, probably watching the screen. My guests are fucking all pretty amazing anyway. So I'm like, and that's what I look for, man. I'm always like I think you've got a great character too, and that definitely comes out in the podcast, and that's all people give a shit about, man. They're not gonna be like,
mm.
oh, bro, did you see like that timber in the background? Don't know about that. Like I don't think it's ever come into anyone's mind.
Yeah. Well, I hope you don't ever underestimate your calling or, skill to do what you're doing. Cause I've done some that were forced and not, and maybe it was me, I don't know, but it doesn't happen by accident. So keep forging ahead and stepping into what you're afraid of, man. Face the tank.
Thanks, mate. Well, now that we've jerked each other off a little bit, let's. I want to talk. It felt good. Like we can do it offline as well. Tell me how awesome I am. Um, I want to hear about post career. Obviously, you said you've gone to VA, you've got a bit of help. Like leaving the military is a shit fight at the best of times, let alone having the career that you had doing the things you did. Um, when did you discover the religion piece? When did that come into for you? Obviously, when you're still in a unit, right? If you were praying while you were jumping.
Yeah, it was I so I'm the guy that's got his I don't want to go to church because it's full of hypocrites. Well, come on, there's room for one more. Like first step was admitting that I'm a hypocrite. And I hated church till very recently. It wasn't church, it was me. Um, it's not even about church. It's not even about a personal relationship with Jesus. It's about truth. I want to know what endures. War's one thing, but war can't be the main thing. What's behind that? So I've always felt called to know, looking up at the sky, man, like I want to know more. One night I was looking up and I saw like a shooting star, but it hit something. This is like at 4 a.m. I'm walking my dogs last year. It hit something and then it redirected and this bright, like if you picture a flashlight this big, like shining down, it was in the dark night, this bright light from a collision. I was like, what was that? I looked at, I don't know if I've never seen anything like that. It was probably two meteors colliding, but man, I don't know. I keep going ethereal onion.
Yeah, send it, bro.
I want to know more. I want to know how we talk about our heart, character. Where does that reside? Is it real? Um, how does it work? Why do I feel better when I tell on myself? I don't know. Why did my brother kill himself? I know he wasn't telling on himself. He wasn't sober. He wasn't talking about this, getting his face pissed on when he was 2. So I don't know. And if I go out freaking watching The Last Samurai to somebody else, so be it, man. But I'm I'm gonna go out hard, man.
Yeah, mate. It's so funny. You're such a not ha funny, but you're such a calm guy when we're doing this podcast. You're very relaxed. But you've just got this intensity about you, man. That's yeah, and you can't always see it. You know what I mean? I'm sure people listening to this are going, "Oh, shut up, Tom." But you do, man. You're like, if I'm gonna go out watching The Last Samurai, like you're coming with me, sort of thing. And there's not a lot of people that have that real intensity. So
Mm.
anyway, I thought we were done jerking each other off, but last one. I
one
promise.
one last day. It was good.
Yeah.
No, I needed to hear that because it reinforces what I'm doing. So not as a compliment, but it would be just as important if it was a, a criticism. Like I need to use that to refine what I'm doing. I just asked my wife the same thing. Like, hey, do you want to come maybe be on this podcast? She was in the unit for 9 years too. I would have texted you, but she's like, no, no, no. And we got to talking about it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Please tell me if I'm on course. And she's like, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. But I mean, for 50 years, I was too afraid to ask that. So.
Yeah. Mate, I think again to continue with this ethereal sort of chat, like I think it is an important question to ask, man. I wrote this big list the other night, and probably one of the last things I wrote in this list was like, I still don't know who I am. I still don't know what I want.
Mm.
And I don't think if I'd asked that question, I ever would have come up with an answer. I still haven't come up with an answer, but I think just posing the question, yeah, it's like when you go, "What's the meaning of life?" You're like, well, there's no meaning. It's just the process. There's no end point. The end point is death. What's beyond that might be religion, might not be, might be nothing. But in the meantime, you can only ask the question and look for the answer. How's that?
Well, yeah, it's good. If you ask the question, so you wrote it down, which
Hmm.
did that make it real?
Yeah, yeah, it did. And look, truth be told, I actually wrote it in a very negative way. I was not feeling so great, and I wrote this big list. It was a very negative list. But then I went back the night after when I was feeling better, and I rewrote the whole list, reframed it. Um, fuck, I don't have it here. I'll tell you offline. But the way I rephrased it was like that I'm constantly looking for new things to search for. I'm constantly looking for new meaning and redefining what I am and what I want. If that makes sense, I'll show you after or I'll
Yeah.
just text it to you or something. But yeah, it was definitely a powerful exercise, man. The fact that I physically wrote it down. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question. And I ask football players that sometime, and it makes the room quiet and uncomfortable because they're like, "What do you mean, coach?" And they say their name or they say what they're doing. I'm like, "Is that who you are though?" I'm trying to get to like something. I don't even know what I'm trying to get to necessarily. I'm just figuring it out for me. So yeah, but asking the question is vital.
Yeah. Well, speaking of questions, mate, I'm gonna wrap up the podcast portion because there'll be a couple of questions on the chat. I've got to go. My social media is all on this one device I'm recording on. I'm going to switch the screen and hopefully the chat won't shit
Okay.
itself, mate. So just give me a second, dude.
All right.
I should have. Of course, the screen's 90 degrees. Ah, here we go. Oh my god, this is
Nothing
going to be
funny.
epically painful for people that are listening to this in their car. Like, what's this guy doing? Why is
Yeah.
he fucking questions, bro? I think there was only one question and you actually answered it. Oh my god. Yeah, this is the guy, man. I'm looking sideways. Um, Let me get back in this chat. Um, so the question was, how did you deal with the loss of Pepper, particularly the fact that you guys never were able to recover her body? And a bit of the question at the end is he asked, what advice do you have for people who've gone through the same experience, never recovered their canine's losses, but how do they get closure?
Yeah. I first of all, I haven't fully dealt with that yet. I don't know if I can. It's definitely one of the probably the most prickly, nasty spots in my soul is knowing that Pepper's bones are somewhere on the damn bottom of the Tigris River, and that I couldn't get her back. And man, and there's so much scripture that talks about animals and that they matter and their souls. So like that is so comforting. So I don't think I can deal with. There's no words or person short of going there and getting her bones, which would help, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. That would get me through that. So I'll have to wait, until the next phase of being. But I can deal with how it affects me. And, like you said, I addressed it. I'm getting better at getting help quicker, not letting it fester and, like a wound. Like, oh, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. It's getting bigger, but it'll be all right. Get right on it, man. Just things will come up in your life. Solutions will present themselves and you'll kind of know, but we don't do it. Like the question, should I write this down? Who are you? What if you hadn't have wrote it down? You wouldn't have been honest with yourself. You would not be in as good of a mental state after that as you were. Even if it was bad, it would have been worse had you not been honest with yourself. So, people say don't worry about what people think. No, that I don't agree with that. We should worry about what people think. It just shouldn't prevent us from becoming who we want to become, because we do care, and we just shouldn't let it stop us from being us. And that's courage. Moral courage is real courage. I don't say that lightly. I knew some of the Rangers from World War II, and all the stuff we did everything we could. So we know what courage is, but there's another kind of courage that I see sometimes in old ladies, or my daughter, or a dog, that I don't have. And the first step is admitting that. So I'm on the way once I admit it.
Yeah. All right, man. I've got a question for you. It's probably not quite as meaningful as that one, but so with the unit, Army Special Missions Unit, Delta Force, CAG, any other
Names of the unit.
used to sock, all the different names of the unit. Mate, what's the deal? What's the real deal with that? I mean, I know that unit by a certain name, but other people don't. Yeah, can you just explain that?
When I was a Ranger in the 90s, we knew it was Hardy Boys, Red Roof Inn, Delta, and we wanted to be them. We didn't even talk to them. Now there's way more interaction, as there should be, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know I've got three friends in particular who are very close friends, who were, commanders there. And my old 2IC was the unit sergeant major. So I know that I couldn't do that. I could barely, be in charge of me and my dog, or myself sometimes, let alone a squadron of freaking dudes running loose, changing the world. But I also try not to be just wishy-washy and, well, I shouldn't judge. Bullshit. We should weigh in. And Jeff Teagues does. That's what I love about that book. There's a 2-star general that he talks about. He doesn't name, maybe he will in his next book. Jeff's a good friend of mine, but this guy's over his shoulder telling him, "Not, you sure you want to do that? You sure you want to do that, Colonel?" Talking down to him. So they go through that same shit. My buddy, his dad's 85, got a bully, and is like, it's never going to stop. So stand up to it. Stand up to it. So, there's times where I'm like, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, I was depressed really bad. I want to go do another 700-mile walk and protest these 4-star generals, because I hold them, no, I don't know their job, but I know humans, and I know heart, and I know God. And God, man, keep getting back to it, but character. So a lack of character is just ugly, and it's not going to go away. Whew. So I think it should be talked about and brought out. How? I don't know. That's kind of why I do this, is because I'm facing a fear. I'm inviting criticism. Oh, I meant to tell you on the story where the 3 guys got shot in front of me.
Yeah.
And the kids, one of them dudes, man, he watched a YouTube video I did with David Hookstead on Outkick. He's like, "Well, I don't do this. I don't talk to the media." I'm like, "Okay, you don't. I do. Here's why. Blah, blah, blah." We're buddies. Like, but at the end, he's like, "Hey, man, I shot that dude. You said Huggy shot him. It was me." I'm like, "Oh, my bad." I said, "Wait a minute. I thought you didn't care. Why does it matter?" He's like, just fix it. I killed him. He's like, "I had 4 rounds put in me, and as I'm going down, I put I put rounds in that deal. I'm like, all right, man, good on you, brother. I'll fix it. So
There you go. It's been fixed, man. Yeah.
yeah,
You got off track there, Dave. We were talking about, I don't know if you did that on
always.
purpose. We're, we're talking about the unit, the names of the unit.
Oh,
And
oh, okay. It's seriously not on purpose. I think it comes from a desire to be humble, but that's not humble. That's, in my estimation, opinion, that's false humility. Humility, I just learned this a couple of years ago, is trusting God and others with your life. Think that through. Let it soak in for a little bit. It doesn't sound like what we think of as humility, but I researched it. Trusting God and others with your life. Think it through. When you're doing that, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trusting this because I know good will come from it. Whereas when I'm not trusting, I'm going to clam up, keep everything in, go make more money, build my empire, build walls, get more guns, get a safe, you know, think my political opinion matters. Like, screw all that, man. I just want to be real and be around people who are real. So once again, the unit names, I think it's my guess is that it started out as an attempt to be humble. Um, even though there's a book, how many books? Delta Force. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just tired of hypocrisy. So I think things changed in '09. I was in Kirkuk when the SEAL Team 6 shot the pirates in Somalia, off Somalia.
mm,
Remember that?
yeah,
Captain, the movie with Tom Hanks.
Phillips.
Yep. That I knew, man. I'm like, oh, man, that's a sexy ass mission. That's awesome. It's an 80-meter sniper shot. Like, so easy, but they got it. Yeah. Yeah, that they did it though. And I was like, man, this is going to change things. And it did. So I wonder often, I've talked about it, like, why do we not, we get freaking, oh boy, Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
And then you know, we say it was somebody else. Like, why are we doing that? To appear humble? It's a lie, first of all. So I don't know, man. It just, then it's like you're so far into it that, uh, and I don't get into these SEAL Team 6 Delta battles. Like, I know guys, they're good men. Both of them on both sides. We're not competing. We're on the same side, last I checked. Um, let's win a damn war instead of drag it out for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly, man. And like, those are the sort of
Sorry,
questions that kind of annoy me. Like, who's better, Delta Force or SEAL Team 6? The Navy
yeah,
SEALs or the Green Berets? Like, in the end, you're
yeah,
like, there's never going to be an answer. Like, but we did this, we
yeah,
did that. You're like, you guys, that's your role. This is our role. And
yeah.
yeah,
But these years will have been special. The killing years, man, from '03 to 2010. Uh, there's still lots of, I call them like Cold War heroes who just talk about that. You like secretive and it's like, dude, nothing happened. Okay. You haven't seen a woman react to a brain on her lap. I know you outranked me, but shut up and listen to this fucking war story. It's different. It's real.
yeah, yeah. I find that, at least in my opinion, some of the attempts to keep certain things secret, you're like, I don't know, man. Like, I thought most of the stuff that we were told was secret. I'm like, I could
Yeah.
have guessed that. I saw that in a movie that was made in the 80s. Like, that's not a,
Right.
I mean, I still wouldn't say it and talk about it just to be professional, but I'm like, in my head, I'm like, it's not a secret. I don't know why we had to do this just so you can tell me that.
I tell people
But
that hey, you want to know the big secret? There is no secret. And I'm telling you the truth.
Mate, it's like when someone's like, "Oh, you hear that the government's doing this conspiracy
Yeah.
theory." Like, bro, government, they have zero plan. Like, if some
Right.
they'll take advantage of it, but they got no plan. They're not like
Yeah.
scheming in their ivory tower, like, and then we'll raise the
Yeah.
petrol prices. You're like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, it's like we fought the war for oil. I'm like, how did we get the oil back from Iraq? Have you investigated this? Because I mean, I ask people this. There were no tankers taking the oil to America from Iraq. You know, it was dumber than that. That would have been a reason. We didn't have a reason.
Yeah, I guess you've got to make your own reasons right at whatever level, but it sounds like at a strategic level or political level, it was a Operation Just Cause sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I got sons and it's like, yeah, it's a little different. So we got to get involved in the solution and we got to call these wankers out first thing, Tom. I'm getting giddy, man.
uh,
This is
hey,
good.
dude, talk to me about your podcast, man. What's the deal? Like, are you have you launched it yet? I should have done it, but I haven't even looked for you on Spotify and stuff yet.
It's on. I finished the first season, which was a mess because I had a co-host who we had to part ways just because he got super busy with something else. But did it first season, uh, put out a bunch of episodes. The first one I talked about it. Look at the one called The Baddest Chaplain. You'll like that one.
That is chapter. All right. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
up on my screen right now. Oh,
And
I've
it's just
still got that image up of for people who are watching.
Lance.
That's Lance
Yeah,
Cornett. And
that's
what
him.
year did Lance pass away, man?
February '06.
Feb 2006. Jesus, man. All
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, it's just who Jesus is because he said I'm the son of God. So he's either lying or he's crazy or he's who he says he is. And I want to know. Uh, and that's who I am is how I answer that question. Doesn't have to be your, but like I've just answered the question who I am in this last year of my life. I mean, this isn't the last year of my life, hopefully, but
Within the
it's
last year,
just
yeah, I know what you mean.
I've just come to that realization that how I answer the question of the calling on my life, and for me, is Jesus who he says he is? Christology podcast study of who Jesus is. That's who I am, and I like who I am now because I'm uh, open and honest, not to hurt anybody, not to get fame. I'm not making any money now, but if I ever should, it's going to this church in Sierra Leone that I've been working with. We're building an orphanage brick by brick. Um, yeah, and so I've got all these checks in place to know, okay, I'm doing this for the right reason. I'm a scared person. It's like, I ask my wife, am I really doing the right thing? Yes, just shut up and go. So I'm a slow
Yeah.
starter, but yeah.
Nah, mate, I reckon once you get started and you build a bit of momentum, man, like 100%, there'll be a bunch of stuff you'll be like, nah, I'm definitely doing the right thing, bro.
Yeah, I need to
Um,
get the wedding picture up.
fucking hope you do. So, dude, I'm gonna knock the potty on the head there, mate. That was an epic chat, bro. It was everything I hoped it would be, everything it was last time. Man, you've been an epic guest. You've been like, I really respect how forthcoming you are with your career and to use the V word, how much vulnerability you've shown on the podcast and to myself and obviously the people that listen, man. So, um, Dave Neilson, man, thanks for coming on, bro.
I appreciate your time very much. And I'm gonna watch you, continue in your career and support you because I believe in what you're doing as well. And I want my kids to know men like you as they grow up. So appreciate you, man.
That means a lot, man. I appreciate it, dude. All right,
All right,
catch you,
bro.
Dave. I'm gonna sit on this record, mate.
Okay.
Hope you enjoyed that episode of the Origin Canine podcast. Tune in next week for another episode. In the meantime, go to origincanine.com, check out our safe, innovative and built for purpose canine equipment.